Are we filming? Yes, it appears so. So, today I want to talk about the dangers of ink, the risks associated with the longevity of the written words, and the strategies employed with the experience of someone who has suffered schoolboy failure, but it's all good fun. So, what on earth am I talking about? Years ago, about half a century ago, I got caught in a deluge on the way to school, and I had a notebook in my pocket, similar to this A6 age bag. Now, this has got fantastic quality Clairefontaine paper. I don't think, I cannot remember, but I don't think that my notebook had anything other than cheap paper inside it. But nevertheless, this was in the top pocket of my anorak as I went to school with a satchel. Do you remember those? Anyway, I got caught in this deluge, this thunderstorm, and when I got to school, being a proponent of the fountain pen, courtesy of my grandfather, who bought me an Osmeroid pen, you'll have to Google it, a sensational pen that taught me the delights and dangers of fountain pens, where filling and refilling a pen was an event, especially with a lever action Osmeroid, I can tell you. Dipping it into a bottle of Parker's Quink ink. But the only problem is that some inks do not last on the paper. They start to fall apart. They start to dissolve if the paper gets wet. And particularly today, I'm not going to show you it, but I'm looking at some brown ink that comes from standard Kaweco cartridges, because I love these Kaweco sport pens. I've got maybe half a dozen of them. I really like the form factor, and I like the nib, and also I like the fact that they are fun, and there's an element of danger associated with the use of these Kaweco pens. So I have had experience of my handwritten text on my pages disappearing due to the ingress of water, I suppose, into a sort of fading into a sort of smudgy hue of inkiness where you can't actually see, you can no longer see what you have written, which is fun if you're at school, but certainly not if you are trying to get things done as an adult, as I invariably am trying to do. But we can have some fun along the way. But I love the ink that I'm going to show you. Let me move things around so that I am a little bit organised. So I'm a fan of Noodler's inks. We're going to go for the E.L. Lawrence. And I like this ink. It's a sort of drab military brown colour, if you like, so synonymous with the man himself. And I love this ink. I've been using it for a while. Bulletproof, which suggests the prospect of longevity. pH neutrality, constant colour, eternal, water-based ink, UV light proof, and with the aid of the magnifying glass, it says, if I can just make it out, resists the tools of forgers. And that is best read with a 50-year-old lights projection lens. But this is fantastic stuff, and it's what I'm using at the moment, partly because of survivability and partly because of good old-fashioned ink-based fun. It's always a danger to take the top off some ink and then let go and do something else, but I'm going to take a risk. There we go. And this ink is quite messy. I'm just going to put the nib on one side just for a moment. It's almost full, so I don't really need to top up, but it's a pleasure all of its own to do this. Now, why do I use brown ink? I think it stems from being at school where I was rebellious, and I've mentioned this before. But I had the inclination to use inks that had a certain element of protest. Browns, dark reds, the colour of blood, which I carefully mixed with other inks to get the hue exactly the same colour as my own blood. God knows why, but it appealed to an 11-year-old schoolboy, I think. Browns as well. Greens, browns, and very dark reds, which I got a certain amount of disapproval. I had one master who was there was a heady mix of geography. He taught geography, history, and he was in charge of the rifle range. So that's a powerful combination, and I got a lot of stick from him for using different coloured inks, and the more he tried to stop me using these weird coloured inks, the more determined I became to continue to use them. So we kind of came to an impasse. I actually went to a school reunion not so long ago, about a year ago, and he was there. He's still alive. Probably close to 100 years old. So good for him. Blue ink clearly did well for him. Proof, proof, proof. You have to be careful with this ink, because if you don't put the cap on immediately, it will stop flowing. So you have to treat this ink with respect, and you also have to accept with a certain fatal air of inevitability that it's going to be messy. Certainly it's going to be messy using a Kaweco Sport pen, but it is what it is. Anyway, the experiment, the demonstration. I've already done one, but it didn't come out. It didn't come out very well when I was chatting to camera, so I'm going to do it again. So we've got one just about to go in the water and another one here that has been in for about half an hour, and as you can see, the ink has survived very well indeed. And although there is an element, can you see that? There is an element of where the ink hasn't completely dried, because it's quite a wet ink. After a certain initial sort of dissolving of the ink, what is left is very, very readable, maybe bulletproof ink, but the paper is going to fall apart before the ink, your handwriting, becomes completely illegible. And what happens is, after a while, I don't know whether you can see, this one has been soaked for maybe half an hour. This one's kind of fading a tiny bit, but it ends up much darker and still very, very, very legible, as you can see. There's no problem with that. No problem with that at all. In fact, I'll just do a little demonstration. If I can take I'm going to sacrifice a piece of paper here to demonstrate how legible it is. Okay, so you can see that if someone accidentally dropped my journal in the bath as they were reading it in a couple of 100 years' time, they would be able to get it out and let it dry on the radiator or whatever the heating device is or will be in 200 years' time, and they will still be able to read what I wrote all those decades, maybe centuries ago. It's going to exist. It's going to exist. So I'm very, very pleased with that. Very, very pleased. So that is the precaution I take when I'm writing my journal, to have something that is, I guess, bulletproof. Anyway, that's the end of my story, and I thank you for watching, and until my next video, goodbye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to contribute to the channel in some way by liking, commenting or subscribing, I'd really appreciate that a lot. And consider becoming a channel member for more. Thank you for watching.